You probably think eggs are a cholesterol bomb waiting to spike your blood sugar and wreck your diabetes management, so you've been skipping them or only eating the whites, right? Wrong. Here's what most seniors with diabetes don't know. The way you prepare eggs changes everything about how they affect your glucose levels. I've reviewed charts for dozens of patients over 65 who ate eggs every morning and couldn't understand why their A1C kept climbing. Not because eggs are dangerous, because nobody explained the hidden sugar traps hiding in how they cooked them. My name is Dr. Daniel. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon with over 20 years of experience treating diabetic heart complications in seniors. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 critical mistakes diabetic seniors make when eating eggs that silently sabotage blood sugar control, and exactly how to fix each one. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which cooking methods protect your glucose levels and which ones destroy them, and you can start tomorrow morning at breakfast. Because this isn't just about eggs. This is about taking back control of your mornings without fear, without confusion, and without wondering if you're accidentally making your diabetes worse every time you sit down to eat. Let's start with why eggs confuse your blood sugar in the first place. Before I tell you the 5 mistakes, you need to understand one thing about eggs that changes everything. They are blood sugar neutral, unless you destroy them. Think of it like this. Eggs are a clean-burning fuel your body knows exactly how to process. Nearly zero carbohydrates, high-quality protein, healthy fats that do not spike insulin on their own. When you eat a plain egg cooked gently, your pancreas barely has to work. Your glucose levels stay stable. Your cells get the nutrients they need without triggering the metabolic chaos that comes from sugar and refined carbs. But here is what happens when you add certain ingredients or cooking methods. You are pouring gasoline on a controlled flame. You are forcing your pancreas to work overtime. The egg itself is not the problem. The egg is still blood sugar neutral at its core. But the moment you combine it with refined carbohydrates, sugary sauces, or high-heat oxidized fats, you create insulin resistance triggers that make glucose control harder for hours after the meal. I have reviewed charts for patients in their 60s and 70s who ate eggs every single morning and could not understand why their A1C numbers kept climbing. They thought they were doing everything right. They avoided sugar. They took their medication. But nobody told them that the way you prepare eggs changes everything about how they affect your blood sugar. The cooking oil you use, the sides you pair them with, the add-ins you mix into scrambled eggs, even the temperature you cook them at. Every single one of these choices either protects your glucose levels or sabotages them completely. So what are the 5 ways you are accidentally turning a perfect diabetic protein into a glucose disaster? Let's start with the one I see most often in my patients over 60. Mistake number 1 is hiding in your frying pan right now. Most people wake up, crack 2 eggs into a pan coated with vegetable oil or canola oil, crank the heat to high, and cook those eggs until the edges are crispy and browned. It feels efficient, it tastes familiar, and it is destroying your insulin sensitivity every single morning. Here is why. High-heat cooking with vegetable oils creates oxidized lipids and advanced glycation end products, AGEs for short. These are toxic compounds that form when fats are exposed to extreme temperatures. Your cells do not recognize them as food, they recognize them as threats. And when your cells are in defense mode, they literally stop responding to insulin signals as efficiently. That is insulin resistance. That is the foundation of type 2 diabetes getting worse instead of better. Studies published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition have shown a direct correlation between AGEs in fried foods and elevated fasting glucose in type 2 diabetics over 60. The more AGEs you consume, the harder it becomes for your body to regulate blood sugar, even when you are eating foods that should be safe. Now, I want to be clear about something. This does not mean you can never fry an egg. But if you are using corn oil, canola oil, or soybean oil in a screaming hot pan every morning, you are creating invisible insulin blockers. You are undoing the very benefit eggs are supposed to provide. But here is the problem. Most people fix this mistake and then immediately make mistake number 2, which is even worse for post-meal glucose spikes. Mistake number 2 happens before the eggs even hit your plate. You cook your eggs perfectly. Medium heat, good oil. Everything is going right. And then you serve them alongside 2 slices of white toast, a pile of hash browns, or a bowl of sweetened oatmeal. The eggs are not the issue anymore. The carbohydrates are about to hijack your entire metabolism. White toast, hash browns, pancakes, sweetened oatmeal. These are high glycemic breakfast carbs. They break down into glucose rapidly. They hit your bloodstream fast. And when that happens, your pancreas has to release a massive surge of insulin to handle the spike. That insulin surge does 2 things. First, it drives glucose into your cells aggressively, which can cause a rebound drop in blood sugar an hour or 2 later, leaving you shaky and hungry again. Second, when insulin is high, your body stays in fat storage mode for hours. It stops burning fat. It stops using stored energy. It just holds on to everything and worsens insulin sensitivity over time. Research on glycemic index and protein-carb meal combinations has shown exactly this effect in seniors with impaired glucose tolerance. Pairing a high-protein food like eggs with high glycemic carbs does not balance the meal. It amplifies the damage. The protein slows digestion slightly, which means the glucose spike lasts longer. Your insulin stays elevated longer. Your cells stay resistant longer. I want to be clear. I am not saying never eat carbs with eggs, but if you are choosing white bread or breakfast potatoes, your blood sugar will spike no matter how perfectly you cooked those eggs. The best way to cook eggs for diabetics starts with what you pair them with, not just how you prepare them. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me, what do you usually eat with your eggs for breakfast? I want to know what combinations you are working with. Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I will just scramble my eggs plain and skip the toast. Smart move, except mistake number 3 ruins even plain scrambled eggs if you are not careful. This one surprises people because it seems harmless. You crack 2 or 3 eggs into a bowl. You add a splash of milk to make them fluffier. Maybe a little heavy cream for richness. You whisk it all together and pour it into the pan. It looks innocent. It tastes creamy and smooth. And it is quietly spiking your blood sugar every single morning. Here is what is happening. Dairy milk and heavy cream add lactose. That is milk sugar. Even a small amount adds up. Lactose does not hit as fast as table sugar, but it still breaks down into glucose. And for seniors, lactose intolerance becomes more common with age. Your body produces less lactase, the enzyme that digests milk sugar. That undigested lactose sits in your gut and affects your glucose control in ways you do not feel immediately, but your blood work will show over time. Then, there are the sweetened add-ins. Ketchup, flavored coffee creamers, store-bought hot sauce with added sugar. These inject hidden sugars that hit your bloodstream fast. 1 tablespoon of ketchup has about 4 grams of sugar. 2 pumps of flavored creamer can have 6 to 8 grams. You think you are eating plain eggs, but you are actually eating eggs and blood sugar control sabotage. Research on lactose intolerance in aging populations has found that even small amounts of milk sugar accumulate and affect diabetic glucose control, especially when consumed daily. It is not dramatic, it is gradual, but over weeks and months, it adds up. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 68 years old, type 2 diabetic for 12 years. She ate scrambled eggs every morning with a splash of whole milk and 2 pumps of flavored coffee creamer mixed in for taste. Her fasting glucose stayed above 140 for months. She could not figure out why. She was taking her medication. She was avoiding dessert. She thought eggs were safe. When I reviewed her routine, I told her to remove the creamer and milk and switch to plain eggs cooked in olive oil with a side of sautéed spinach. 3 weeks later, her fasting glucose dropped to 110. She could not believe the hidden sugar was that powerful. Margaret's story leads directly into mistake number 4, because even if you avoid all the add-ins, the way you cook the eggs themselves can still wreck your blood sugar. Here is the cooking mistake that almost nobody talks about. You heat your pan too high. You cook your eggs too long. You flip them and press them and scrape them until they are rubbery, browned, and dry. You think you are being thorough. You think you are killing bacteria. But what you are really doing is creating more ages, those advanced glycation end products I mentioned earlier, and oxidizing the cholesterol in the yolk. Overcooking eggs at high heat does not just change the texture, it changes the chemistry. The proteins denature aggressively, the fats oxidize, and when oxidized fats and overcooked proteins enter your bloodstream, they increase systemic inflammation. Inflammation is the silent driver of insulin resistance in diabetics. It tells your cells to ignore insulin. It keeps your blood sugar elevated even when your pancreas is working overtime. Clinical findings on overcooked animal proteins and their inflammatory markers in diabetic populations have tied this directly to cardiovascular risk in seniors. The more inflammation you have, the harder your heart has to work. The stiffer your arteries become, the higher your risk for stroke and heart attack climbs. Now, I want to be clear about something. Runny eggs are not for everyone, especially if you have a compromised immune system. But there is a middle ground between raw and charred that protects both your safety and your glucose levels. Medium-low heat. Eggs cooked just until set. Still soft, still moist. That is the sweet spot. So you have fixed the oil, skipped the toast, avoided the milk, and stopped burning your eggs. You are doing everything right, except for mistake number 5, which happens after you finish eating. Mistake number 5 is about what is missing from your plate. You eat 2 perfectly cooked eggs, plain, no toast, no milk, no sugar. You did everything I just told you, and 90 minutes later, you are starving again. You are reaching for a snack. Your blood sugar is swinging, and you cannot figure out why eggs are not keeping you full. Here is what is happening. Eggs alone are high protein and satiating in the short term. But without fiber to slow digestion and regulate glucose release, your body processes them quickly. Protein triggers some insulin release, not as much as carbs, but enough. And when there is no fiber present to create a buffer, that insulin moves glucose out of your bloodstream fast. Too fast. You get a mild dip, you feel hungry, you snack, and those snacks are almost never diabetic friendly. Research on protein-fiber synergy in diabetic meal planning has shown exactly how powerful this combination is. Studies using continuous glucose monitors, CGMs, have found that pairing eggs with non-starchy vegetables flattens glucose curves dramatically. The fiber slows digestion. It stabilizes insulin response. It keeps you full for 3 to 4 hours instead of 90 minutes. And that prevents the mid-morning glucose swings that wreck your A1C over time. This does not mean you need a huge salad at 7 in the morning, but adding 1 cup of sautéed spinach, steamed broccoli, or sliced avocado to your eggs creates a metabolic buffer that keeps your blood sugar stable for hours. It is not complicated. It is just intentional. Now, I know what you are thinking. I can hear the question already. Dr. Daniel, this feels like too many rules. Should I just skip eggs altogether? I understand. You just heard 5 different ways to get eggs wrong. It sounds overwhelming. It sounds easier to avoid them completely and eliminate the risk. But here is what I need you to understand. Eating eggs the right way is not about adding complexity. It is about removing the invisible mistakes you have been making on autopilot. Once you know what to avoid, it becomes automatic. I have seen patients in their 70s who were terrified of food. They cut out eggs, cheese, meat, anything that felt risky. They ate plain oatmeal and fruit and whole wheat toast, and their A1C kept climbing. Because fear-based restriction does not work. Education-based strategy does. You do not need fewer options. You need better information. The eggs themselves are not your enemy. The carbs you pair them with are. The oils you fry them in are. The add-ins you mix in without thinking are. But when you strip all that away and cook eggs correctly with fiber-rich vegetables, you have one of the most blood sugar-friendly breakfasts a diabetic can eat. High protein, healthy fats, 0 sugar, stable glucose. That is empowerment, not restriction. So let me make this as simple as possible. Here is exactly what you can do tonight. You do not need to overhaul your entire diet tonight. Just do these 3 things. First, check your pantry and fridge. Look at the oils you have been using to cook eggs. Vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil. Throw them out, or at the very least, stop using them for eggs. Replace them with olive oil, avocado oil, or butter. Real butter from grass-fed cows if you can find it. These fats are stable at moderate heat. They do not oxidize aggressively. They do not create ages. They protect your insulin sensitivity instead of destroying it. Second, tomorrow morning, cook 2 eggs in olive oil over medium-low heat. Not high, not medium-high, medium-low. Stop cooking when the eggs are just set, not browned, not rubbery, soft and creamy, and pair them with 1 cup of sautéed spinach or steamed broccoli. No toast, no hash browns, no fruit on the side, just eggs and vegetables. That is it. Eat that breakfast, and then check your blood sugar 2 hours later. Write it down. Compare it to what your blood sugar usually is after your normal breakfast. You will see the difference yourself. Third, track your fasting blood sugar for 3 mornings after eating eggs this new way. Write down the numbers. Compare them to your previous readings from the last month. If you have been making the 5 mistakes I just walked you through, you will see your fasting glucose start to drop within a week. It will not be dramatic overnight, but it will be consistent. And consistency is what lowers your A1C over time. You do not have to do all 3 tonight. Pick the one that feels most immediate to you. Do it once, then do it again tomorrow. That is how real change begins. Not with perfection, with one intentional decision repeated until it becomes automatic. Let me bring this all together. We covered 5 mistakes that turn eggs from a blood sugar-friendly protein into a diabetic disaster. Not eating eggs with fiber-rich vegetables that leaves you hungry and swinging between glucose highs and lows all morning. Overcooking eggs until they are browned or rubbery. That creates inflammatory compounds and oxidized cholesterol that worsen insulin resistance. Adding milk, cream, or sugar-heavy mix-ins that injects hidden lactose and sugars that spike your blood sugar silently. Pairing eggs with high glycemic carbs like white toast or hash browns that triggers massive insulin surges and keeps your body in fat storage mode for hours. And cooking eggs in vegetable oils at high heat that creates ages and oxidized fats that block your cells from responding to insulin. 5 mistakes, all fixable, all under your control. Now I want to hear from you. What is your go-to breakfast right now? Are you making any of these 5 mistakes without realizing it? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Your experience helps other people in this community make better decisions. Share what is working. Share what is not. We learn from each other. And if you know someone over 60 with diabetes who has been told to avoid eggs or is confused about breakfast, share this video with them. This information could change their mornings and their A1C completely. There is someone in your life right now who needs exactly this information. Send it to them. It takes 5 seconds. It could save them years of unnecessary struggle. Subscribe to this channel because I am posting more videos on how to eat the foods you love without spiking your blood sugar. Next week, I am covering the truth about oatmeal for diabetics, and you are not going to believe what I found. The research is clear. The recommendations most doctors give are outdated, and I am going to show you exactly what to do instead. Thank you for watching. Thank you for taking your health seriously. Thank you for being here. You deserve to eat breakfast without fear. You deserve to understand how your body works. And you deserve information your doctor never has time to explain. That is why I make these videos,